Canucks Army's prospect expert who's been at development camp since Monday out at UBC. Dave Hall joins us now. Dave, thanks so much for doing this.
No, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, happy to have you as always. You've been at development camp for 3 days now. Well, this is the third day, I guess, and they're not on the ice. But from the sessions you've seen, who's standing out the most so far?
Well, I mean, first of all, right off the bat, I will say the only downside to this whole camp that's been there so far is that they've elected to go no name bars and no numbers this year. So trying to decipher, a 74 to a 77 on the little tiny emblem on the helmet has been, it's been an experience to say the least. But so, I mean, right off the bat, it's really hard not to notice Vilmer Ulrichsen. He's just like, I mean, the kid's 19 and he's 6'6". Looks like he's gone up to 200 or 235 pounds. So like right off the bat, he's just really hard not to notice. But in terms of their play, I mean, it's hard not to just completely focus on Tom Willander. He's just so, as he should be as a first round pick, he's just so head and shoulders above like everyone, just with his skating, his smoothness, and just his hands in general.
I wanted to ask you about the hands of Willander and his overall puck skills, because I think we've known since he's been drafted that he's got that beautiful, flowing, elegant skating, but it's been the puck skills and trying to be able to make more plays and improving his hands that is, I think, a big part of his development. How much progress have you seen in that area from him since he's been drafted?
Yeah, I mean, he's looked good. I think one important thing to take away from this development camp is that it's not really the environment to be judging the players, how have they progressed and how are they doing versus last year, only because, even Manny Malhotra has alluded to a couple times that this week is really, it's not focused on, you're trying to make it or earn a job. You're not trying to get focus on you. It's really just a lot of drills that are just focused on, quick plays. I've noticed a lot of quick transition plays where they're doing a lot of one-touch passing. But I mean, overall, like every once in a while, it's early in the summer. A lot of the kids haven't skated in a while. Some are coming off jet planes from all over the world. So, obviously everyone's a little bit rusty and the hands are a little bit, there's some fumbles here and there. But so far through every drill, he's kind of the one that always stands out as doing it pretty smoothly. So overall, like I said, without even trying to, you're almost just gravitating towards him because he's just doing things so smoothly and so effortless. So it's definitely nice to see. It's nice to see in person, and you really get a true appreciation for just how smooth he really is.
Dave, you've been writing about each day of development camp so far for Canucks Army, and I edited yesterday's piece and I read all about Melvin Fernstrom and that shot. Tell us about the Canucks third round pick this year and how his shot has stood out at development camp so far.
Yeah, so far he's come as advertised. It's not I wouldn't say it's the hardest shot in camp by no means, but he's picking corners all the time. He seems to have a really good idea of where his shots are going. And, on any given time, he's picking those corners. So it's definitely been nice to see. He's doing a lot out there. You can see the creativity he has in his game. You can also see some of the downsides in his game. You can definitely see they're doing a lot of, pass, curl arounds, receive another pass, and then shoot. And you can tell in his curls, he's a little bit, below average and compared to some of the other kids in his skating. But overall, his shot, you can definitely see he's good at picking those corners.
Last year, the Canucks had around 60 prospects at development camp. You noted that this year it's down to 28, less than half. Can you talk a little bit about the organization's new philosophy and strategy around cutting down the number of prospect camp invites and what the advantages of that are?
Yeah, they have 28 skaters in total, 24 skaters in total plus 4 goalies, so 28 players, and they got 10 coaches at any given time out on the ice. So the ratio is pretty crazy, and that, according to Manny Malhotra, that is definitely by design. They're really trying to focus a lot on hands-on, and again, it's a development camp, not a tryout, right? So they're really trying to focus on just honing in, getting that one-on-one skill, and they're doing a lot of off-ice activities. First session was only a 45-minute skate, real quick pace and just quick get on and off. Yesterday they had more on ice, but today they're not even on the ice. They're focusing solely on community stuff. I know they've had several guest speakers come in, whether that's a coaching staff, or I saw they had an RCMP in yesterday. So I think this week, they have notebooks, and it's all really geared and focused toward on them learning and being able to take something back to wherever they're playing next year. And so it's been really cool. One thing that I am curious about, and I still haven't really gotten an answer as to why this is, but I've noticed that none of the Swedish kids are there. Lucas Forsell's not there, Lekaramäki or Pedersen aren't there, which, by all accounts, they should be there. So it is a little interesting that they've cut it down, but they are missing, a few of the Swedish players. But it is nice. You can definitely feel with the coaches ratio that it's a more hands-on feel.
Tell us about Anthony Romani. This guy leads the OHL in scoring. Has his shot popped off at this camp? Like, what are you seeing from Anthony Romani?
It hasn't. Funny story about Romani. It actually, and I'll say this, in my day one diary or notebook, I actually followed Romani most of the day thinking that it was Patterson. Just because, again, no name bars. You're trying, so especially on that first day when they're all coming out, unless you're Ulrichsen, who's 6'6". A lot of these kids look the same, like a lot of them are pretty on par with each other. And so I actually spent most of the day thinking he was another player. And it turns out it was Romani the whole time. So I have to say, I've been very impressed with him. I didn't realize that I was so impressed with him until day 2 when I realized that it was Romani. But he's looked really good. He's, you can tell he's not the fleetest of foot, but his skating is decent. It's definitely come a long way, but his shot is definitely on par. His passing has been really good. And overall, he's just kind of stuck out among the crowd as a pretty good player, to be honest. I'm really excited. And I saw him doing an interview yesterday. I wasn't in on the interview, but I kind of was keeping tabs on it. And by all accounts, he seems like a really good kid too. So I'm really excited to actually talk to him myself.
I've got more questions around dev camp, but I wanted to step back and ask you a little bit about Vancouver's philosophy at the 2024 draft, just because we didn't have a chance to chat about that. It was interesting that a lot of Vancouver's draft picks in the mid to late rounds had a strong statistical profile, but maybe with some of their physical attributes, namely their skating, they were a little bit lacking there, which seems quite different from what we've seen in the past, especially from, let's say, the Jim Benning regime, where they were more target guys with very specific attributes and not really care so much about player statistical profile. What do you make of that philosophy change? And like, for me, I think that's a positive development, because you want to draft hockey players and sort of, you can bet on other attributes catching up. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, no, I love it, to be honest. I know Quads and I were talking about this when we were doing our draft day episode. And, you can either go one or two ways. Just like you said, you can either go the safe bet or you can go the upside swing. With not a lot of picks, I love the fact that they're going on upside here. And I think, they have, I know that every NHL team has a really good developmental, staff, and they have a really good coaching staff. But I think Vancouver is quite unique in the fact that they have a pretty elite developmental staff here, and they have a lot of coaches that are pretty good at what they do. And so I think they're quite confident in their ability to work on those, maybe whether it's skating or maybe it's defensive game. I think they're quite confident in their abilities to, maybe up the ante on those. And so at this point, when you're not holding a first or second round and, you're kind of taking swings on kids, regardless if it's the safe pick or not, I think, why not pick a kid that scored 58 goals and 111 points at 18 years old in the OHL? You know what I mean? So I think for me, I love the fact that from rounds 3 to 6, they just went pure upside. I think based on who they have in the developmental system in terms of coaches, I think it's by far the greatest way to go about it. Just go for upside swings and just trust your development to be able to hone in on those skating. Because overall, a lot of them, even like Romani, I just alluded to Romani's skating. Like it's noticeably a little bit off, but it's by no means terrible. And Fernstrom can work on some of his choppy pivots, but it's by no means, terrible, So I think there is definitely stuff to work on, but I think it's nice to, actually hone in on some of that offensive skill, because let's be honest, Canucks don't really have not only a big prospect pool, but in terms of offensive upside, it's also not very potent. So why not take some swings and just hope you can hit? You took five swings. Let's hope you can hit on at least one of them.
Dave, you had a conversation with Parker Alcos. That's up now at CanucksArmy.com. What can you tell us about the big guy from Port Moody?
Yeah, he seems like a great kid. Vancouver Canuck fan as he was a kid. He was home watching it with his family, getting his name called. So dream come true for him. He just seemed very, very humble about the entire experience and just trying to. I think it's tough with these drafted kids because it's just such a crazy week for them. They go from being a 17-year-old kid that's playing junior hockey to being drafted to the NHL, let alone your hometown club. So, and then, just attending your first development camp. So I think, his head's kind of spinning a little bit, but he seems like a really good kid. And on the ice, he's definitely a fluid skater. You notice him out there. I think he'll have to fill out a little bit. He's by no means small, but I think just in turn, I think he's listed at 175 pounds. So you can definitely tell as a 17-year-old probably should. He'll need to fill out a little bit more. But yeah, he seems like a good kid, and I'm excited to see him more this week.
You've referred on a couple of occasions to Soren Mino as your guy. Yeah. He's a prospect that doesn't get a lot of attention in this market. Can you give us the case on why Mino is your guy and has legit NHL potential?
Yeah, and I will start by prefacing that it's not that I think he's going to be the next great top pairing defenseman. I just think for a third round pick, I'm just constant every time I watch him, and now that I'm seeing him at Def Camp, I have a hard time not being just liking what I'm seeing. There's not much that you don't like in his game. Skating, he's one of the most fluid out there. He's a really good skater. He's aggressive. Like yesterday, I saw him take a nice healthy hack at Vilmer Ulrichsen's stick, broke it in half, and that was just in a little one-on-one battle. So he's got that aggressive mean streak. His shot is incredible. He's got a booming one-timer that he scored 16 goals with at the WHL level this year, basically all from the same spot. And he's just overall for a third round pick. I think the profile is there enough that I think there's at least some more intrigue than I would think for an otherwise third round pick. Like I said, without even meaning to, I just find myself constantly drawn to the game that he plays. And yeah, there's still some things that he's going to work with. And let's be honest, he's been playing at the WHL level. This camp, he's playing against 17-year-olds for the most part. So, take that with a grain of salt. We'll have to see what he does when he eventually makes that swing to the AHL level. But I just have a feeling that, he's going to play NHL games at some point, whether that's second pair or bottom pair. I think he's got a good profile.
Dave, how's Aku looking? Is he looking like he's moving better in the crease? Aku Koskembo, tell me about him.
He's looked good. I tried to get some good videos from you. Actually, I had one good video yesterday that I was really excited about. I was going to send to you personally, but it turns out I was taking photos and it wasn't a video. So I lost out on that, but he's looked good. Out of all the four goaltenders, I think he's probably looked the most polished out of all of them. I'm by no means a goalie expert on their movements, but so far he looks pretty good between the pipes. I mean, obviously it's not the best environment for goaltenders by any means. He's just constantly getting one-on-one breakaways and, odd man rushes. So it's not a very pleasant environment for them, but I think he's looked pretty good.
We've talked a little bit about Josh Bloom over the last month. He obviously scores the Memorial Cup winning goal, and it was an interesting year for him where he spent some time in the AHL, spent some time in the ECHL, and ultimately played his overage season in junior, which on the one hand, you can say you don't love the fact that he wasn't able to crack it fully in pro hockey, and yet it's not always the worst thing to go back to junior and have another year where you're the guy and you play in a frontline sort of role. Do you think he's ready to take that big step this year and potentially be a full-time contributor for Abbotsford? And where do you just stand on him as a prospect now compared to when the Canucks initially acquired him as part of the Stillman trade?
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, I think it is funny. I mean, we say that, oh, it sucks. He was sent back to junior. It's the worst thing. The kid's only still 20 years old, right? Like we get all excited about these NCAA players that we're hoping that the Canucks signed, but they're coming in as 23, 24-year-olds, right? So, I think it's really important to think, especially with a guy like Josh Bloom, that there's still a lot of runway. Like this kid is still 20 years old. He's very young. So right off the bat, I think that's important to remember. But this week, he's one of those guys along with Wilander that stood out. You could tell that he's been to a few camps, and you can tell that he's had some pro camps under his belt as well, because he's setting the tone. I talked to him off ice, and he actually seems like the perfect kid to get sent down in the middle of a pro tryout, because it just seems like it didn't phase him. He does nothing but embrace the fact that he had stuff to work on and kind of take in that extra opportunity to go to the Memorial Cup. And he seems like he's got a really good head on his shoulder, and he's trying to, I get the sense that he's trying to act as a bit of a leader among this group. He's been there a few times now. He's a little bit on the older side. So I think he's really trying to take the younger kids under his wing. And on the ice, he's the most vocal out there. He's setting the tone on every single drill. He's going pretty hard. And that's his game anyways. He's an enforcer. He's a real hard, in your nose kind of face kind of kid. And he's setting the tone this entire camp. And he basically, as I said in my notebook yesterday, he's playing like he wants to earn a spot in Abbotsford come September. I think at the very least, it's going to be a pretty young roster. And so I think at the very least, he's probably going to carve out some sort of checking line role, whether that's a third or fourth line role. I do think he'll, at the end of the day, make the team.
I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, but if we take a 200-foot view of Vancouver's prospect pool, and we'll say that Shilovs counts as a prospect for the purposes of this. Okay. But how does Vancouver's prospect pool look relative to the rest of the NHL? Are we talking about a system that's average, a bit below average? Like, where would you kind of slot them in relative to the rest of the league?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I mean, the fact that, as we've talked about earlier, like the fact that they did take some offensive swings, and we do have some skill embedded into the prospect pool, I think it does get upped a little bit. That being said, we're still looking at third round, fourth round, fifth round prospects, so it's kind of tough to just say, Melvin Fernstrom, instantly props them into the top 10 among the leagues. So I still would think it's probably league average. I think with guys like Lekaramaki and Vilander and even now Shilovs, if he's being included, I definitely think I wouldn't say we're below average, but I think average is probably around your best bet, anywhere from 15 to 20th around the league. I do really like that the additions that they've made, but I think overall we're still just begging for a little bit more substance at the top end, right? So that's my opinion. Just still league average. It's exciting. It's intriguing. There's some new names that are always fun, but that's about it.
I'm looking forward to your prospect rankings, Dave. Your rankings of the Canucks prospects. Going to be a good time. Good time to read those. In the next couple of weeks here, Dave, we'll be following the rest of your coverage over at Development Camp for the rest of the week. We really appreciate you taking the time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the CanucksArmy YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.